Hi, it's Jeff here. Before we start our latest pod, just a quick word to remind you of the Harpin Guinness Pint Predictor League. There's still loads of time to enter and win prizes. You can, of course, win yourself a free pint from each individual prediction. And also, the highest score from a single week gets a copy of the book on how you become a pro rugby player by Brian Moylett. He spoke to us on a bonus pod during the week. You can enter by first downloading the free Fanzo app, then joining our league. Just enter the code Harpin, that's Harpin, and keep forecasting the scores from the remaining games of the Six Nations. Right, it's time to start harping on rugby. And shortly after the restart, a strong run from Scott Penny put Leinster back on the front foot in opposition territory. And when a penalty got us a line out around their 22, Penny was involved again, setting up his skipper, Kieran.
Yeah, Rhys Ruddock getting over. Dragons switched off a little bit. I thought it was exactly what they didn't need to do. They had just gotten back into the game. And as we said, they were playing with the wind in their favour. So you knew that was going to change in the second half. They kind of need to take advantage of that. Really clever by Luke McGrath. Quick tap, and we're seeing a lot more quick taps these days, and it's a good idea. It's probably less risk than a set piece. If you have a line out or a scrum, you can give away penalties, something can go wrong. But Luke McGrath, who always reads the game so well, quick tap. Scott Penny, a great burst. He's another one who probably maybe not before the World Cup, but surely afterwards he'll be in the Ireland setup. It's probably a bit late to bring him in now, but he did well for the under 20s, and I'm sure he'll be back in the setup. And then Rhys Ruddock getting over, good, really well worked try, and it was smart play as well because Dragons had just scored. So it's the kind of thing from a penalty. If you go to the corner, if you go for a scrum, Dragons would have had momentum. They could have, and they would have had a good chance of turning it over. So it was a clever move. Harry Byrne missed a conversion, unfortunately. So it was 2 out of 3 for him. I think I think it was a big game for Byrne, and it'll probably that miss will probably be eating at him. Not that it was a particularly easy kick, but good try by Rhys Ruddock.
Yes, and before we move on, we've spent a lot of time on these pods this season harping on individual Leinster players, and I reckon if anyone deserves some airtime, it has to be Rhys Ruddock, as well as this try. He went on to be named player of the match. And Tom, at 32, he's had quite the career and still an invaluable member of Leinster's squad.
Yeah, I only mentioned Rhys on Twitter a couple of weeks ago after another performance where, he's there since 2006, and he's just mainstay all the way through that time. The Leinster coming out of that era of Munster dominance, and he's been ever present since. How many caps has he now? 200. Trying to remember exactly how many caps he has now. But he's such a leader, and he's so calm. Even in the post-match interviews, he's after doing 80 minutes on the pitch, and you can just imagine what he's like in the dressing room to a lot of younger players. There's no panic with him. He's just an intelligent player that, as Kieran mentioned, even though we've just given away a try, he was right. Let's lead from the front. Let's get one straight back and knock the wind out of whatever sails Dragons had built up for themselves. So that's just the type of player he is. He's so intelligent on the pitch and so calm. He's unlucky maybe not to get a few more Ireland caps, and it's amazing to think that if we're playing a Heineken Cup final tomorrow, he mightn't even make the 23. That's just the ridiculous side of it. He's a guy that could have went off anywhere during his career. I think he would have got picked up any club in the UK or France even, but he stayed with Leinster. And he's the type of guy I think that Leinster might end up hiring post when he finishes his career. He strikes me as a guy that's hugely admired by academy players, and a lot of the times when Cullen has had to make a lot of substitutions or a lot of changes in the team, and his academy guys playing, Rhys Ruddock inevitably is captain, even though he's got players around them like Luke McGrath, who's a captain a lot as well. But Ruddock seems to be one that's sort of a father figure there, having come through the academy himself, and he's respected. So that speaks a lot. He's call it the golden era of Leinster rugby. It's okay to say it. He's been there all the way through that time, and that speaks volumes to a guy that he's there that long and still putting out 80-minute shifts like he did the weekend.
Yeah, I mean he's been with Leinster for so long, and he's part of he started as part of a great Irish under-20 setup, or was it even under-20s back then? But he captained Leinster very early as well. He was still young enough when he started doing that, and he's been and you say about he could go on and be a coach. I think that players like Ruddock and even Sexton as well, like a lot of those more senior players, they're practically coaches already. They're an influence within the squad, and they're involved in what's going on, and they inspire those around them. And he's been doing all that for Leinster. Like, well, what has been your take on him, Kieran?
Yeah, he's Leinster true and true. Really, I mean, he's been it's mad to think he's still playing at a good level for Leinster, and he actually started playing before I had even ever been to a game. I came in a little bit of a glory hunter time. Tom mentioned the golden era. I'm very lucky, but we probably take it for granted a little bit as Leinster fans, particularly my age group, who kind of are very used to winning leagues, winning Heineken Cups. We were all fairly confident, regardless of what was going on off the pitch in Wales. We were all fairly confident Leinster would get a bonus point win despite playing a second team, and that's the case a lot of the times. Leinster play a second team, and Rhys Ruddock is there. He's there often in terms of he's holding a lot of young players together. Leinster have been so good at producing young players, but they need leadership, and that's exactly what Ruddock has done so well. He reminds me a bit of Leo Cullen in the sense that he's a forward who's so important to Leinster, and he's added so much, and he's captain, and he's added so much leadership, but he just hasn't really got much of a run for Ireland. Probably just because there were other combinations ahead of him. I think he'll be massively important now, and we'd hope with the games being in the Aviva, Leinster get past the quarterfinal, get past the last 16 and quarterfinal of the European Cup, and that means it'll be quite a hectic end to the season with URC knockouts, which Leinster are guaranteed to be in, and a potential European Cup semi-final if we get there. So, I mean, he's going to be massively important then, and like Tom said, he mightn't necessarily play in a European Cup final, but he's a good one to call on. He's going to be the kind of player who does play in these big games, but he's been a really important cog in helping us take over throughout the season, because he's probably not the first Leinster player you think of when whether you're thinking of the Sextons or the O'Driscolls of old, or now the newer group players coming up in like Gary Ringrose the last few years and things like that. But he's been a really important, consistent presence over that time. And like Tom said, he could have gone off somewhere else. He would have done fairly well at any other club. But he is Leinster true and true. And I think I think we'll maybe he's obviously in his 30s now. He seems like he'll have a few more years left, but when he's gone, he'll probably be the kind of player his impact is missed. And I agree that he'd be a great coach, just like Leo Cullen is. I think he's, like you said, he already kind of is a coach on the pitch. He already does a lot of I imagine he's a great presence in training. So excuse me, he's definitely he's a potential future one. And at the end of the day, the World Cup squad, you're going to have players who potentially get on the plane but don't maybe only play 20 minutes of one game, best for teams, and don't really feature in the knockout rounds. For those kind of games, you can do worse than have a character like Rhys Ruddock, because sometimes if players aren't happy that they're not playing, they could be a bad presence in the dressing room. But Rhys, he just seems like such a great character. So I'd love to see him get another bit of time for Ireland. But look, we just have so much quality in that position at the moment that you could nearly we talked about Tyburn, potentially his injury might cost him a place in the World Cup. Like you look at we could nearly pick 3 or 4 back rows every week, and you'd still be leaving out a few good players. So I hope he gets a good I hope he has a good year this year, and he'd certainly be very deserving of 2 medals if we and the Irish Shield, of course, which is a real trophy.
Yep. Tom.
Yeah, I didn't want to fall foul of our resident statistician Keno by getting the stats wrong. So he's 16 caps for Leinster. It's funny as well, he's got 27 caps for Ireland, and you think maybe he should have gotten more, but I suppose through that time, he's had Stephen Ferris, Sean O'Brien, David Wallace, Jamie Heaslip, Peter O'Mahony, and so forth onto the current crop. So there's always been huge competition in the back row. So even in that time to pick up that many caps, shows, what a good player he's looked, I know it's all about 50 caps these days, but still, he's been capped over 27 times for his country, which is fantastic.
27 more than we've got.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, and just again to focus on his contribution in this particular match, it was a thoroughly deserved player of the match. Not only was he in the right place to get that offload from Scott Penny for the try, but there was a great combination on the left wing as well at one stage going forward where he was tied to the touchline but still stayed in play and was able to get the offload inside, things like that. But there's also the extra things as well. We're talking about the pressure the Dragons were putting us under. They were showing great line speed and stuff, and a couple of times we were being pushed back, but it was the carries, especially the likes of Rhys Ruddock. It was his carries getting that extra yards after the tackle each time, that what they call that, I know it's a catchphrase, but the unseen work, the things you don't make YouTube reels about, but still very important. Those little contributions all around the pitch. That's what he's always done. That's what we've always come to expect of him. And he's played all positions in the back row over the years for Leinster as well. And it's been a really, really valuable asset to the team. So it's good to see him get this recognition for this game, and good that we've had a chance to talk about him,